This video is hopefully the first of a video series that I am using to answer in a little more detail some of the questions that I get asked in my class about the features of Lightroom and Photoshop that aren't used very often. I would appreciate any feedback you can give me on the content of this video. This is Dick Budnick here. I'm just going to do a quick little video, hopefully, to answer a few of the questions that have been coming up in my recent photo class. One of the things I do in this photo class is I tend, when we're looking at new techniques that come up in Photoshop or Lightroom or the plugins, I find some video done by some expert that can explain the new features and show us in detail how it works and all that kind of good stuff. And the problem with that is, and that's fine as long as I share the video with the class afterwards, which I always do use class notes that I send out to everybody with the links to the videos. However, some of the tools people have just sort of forgotten how to use, and frankly, it would take me longer to go find a video than just to show you what that particular tool does. So let me start with this one. I've opened up an image of a bird sitting on a wire, not a very good bird, not a very good wire, but it'll demonstrate a tool. And what I want to do initially is show you, we want to eventually use a tool that's been around for a while. And if you go up over here, let me blow up the toolbar so we can see it. If we go up to the toolbar, and if we come down to the spot healing brush is the normal tool that displays, and we click and we hold. All right, actually click twice. And we come down and we have the spot healing brush. We have the healing brush, we have a patch tool, but we have this other tool that's been around for a while and most people don't bother using. It's called the Content Aware Move tool. So let's pick that and see what the symbol looks like. All right. And to make this tool easier to work with, I want to add another tool down here, which is hidden sort of. If you come down to the three dots at the bottom, Photoshop ships with these tools and showing them. But if there's additional tools, it just sort of throws them into a little extra tray down here. So you see there's an edit toolbar option, there's a frame tool, and there's an object selection tool. What I want to do is I want to take the object selection tool and I want to move it up into the sets of other selection tools so it's easier to find. To do that, we need first to go to Edit Toolbar. You only have to do this once. We go to Edit Toolbar, it actually brings up a window probably most people have never seen in Photoshop. And if you can see here that the extra tools shows you the tools that are down there. At the present, there's only two tools, the frame tool and the object selection tool. Now, if you look over here, this shows you all your tools that are currently displaying as separate groups in Photoshop. And I think the more appropriate place to put this object selection tool, rather than leaving it here where we forget about it completely, is to take it and bring it down and put it into where the quick selection tool and the magic wand tools are. Because it's a tool that you find that once you got it in there that you'll end up using it more and more as time goes on. So to make that change, all you do is you grab the tool, click on it, drag it, okay, and drop it pretty much where you want it. You see I dropped it just below the magic wand tool, so now it's added it here and it's disappeared from up here. All right. So really, and at that point, all we have to do is say done before. Let me blow it up again to show you. The three dots are here, but when we click, you see we have the edit toolbar option and we have the frame tool, but the object selection tool is no longer there. Right there. Okay, so normally we have this set up. Most of us tend to leave this tool set up. So the quick selection tool is the one that displays. So you get used to seeing this symbol. Let's all right, I'm reshooting the rest of this video because I had a problem with resolution trying to record things on Zoom. So I'm back now recording it with Microsoft Encoder, which frankly is a much better program than Zoom at recording a moving screen. All right, same picture we were working on before, except that I upped the contrast a little on the bird and I added a blue sky because I was sick of looking at a white sky. So we basically have the background picture all ready to go. So the deal is we had previously moved the object selection tool, or select object tool, object selection tool I think it's called. We had previously moved it from down below where the three dots were in a earlier part of this video. And I moved it up to up on top with the other selection tools. So if we hover, we have the quick selection tool, we have the magic wand tool, and we have the object selection tool. So a couple of things you need to know about using the object selection tool is that it does exactly that. When you click on it, we get, with any of the selection tools, even like the crop tool or the lasso tool, whatever, when you do it, you get two choices up at the top here. Can I blow this up? Yes. One choice is select subject, and the other one is select and mask. And if you hit select subject, it basically goes in and tries to pick out what it thinks is the subject and select it. That works most of the time. All right. And then if it doesn't select it perfectly or you need to refine the selection, you click on select and mask. That opens up another window, which we've talked about several times before, where you can go in and tell it only use material around certain parts of the area, and we can refine our selection based on that. We can change conditions based on that. Okay, I think before I like to start, I ought to do what? Yeah, okay, let's try this. Let me ignore that tool for the moment and come down over on the left side. And let's look at this tool that was the main topic here, which is the Content Aware Move tool. It has that funny symbol. If you click and hold, it's under the same group that has the Spot Healing Brush, the Patch tool, the Red Eye tool, and the Content Aware Move tool. So we chose the Content Aware Move tool, so it's got the little dot on it, and clicked on it. Okay, now the tool is active. And basically, the way this works is you got two choices. There's an extend mode up here, and there's a move. Okay? And the idea is if we want to use this as content aware move, we set this for move up here. And if we want to set it to basically clone and move, let's say in this case we want to clone the bird and add another bird over here. We could use the clone tool to do it, but it's easy to use this tool to do it also. Okay, so I'm going to start with the extended mode because I want to make a copy of the bird and then go back to the other tool for a second. You notice there's also two other sliders up here. One is structure, which runs from 1 to 7 is the range on that. By default, I think it's left at 4. And there's a color slider, which does color from basically from 0 to 10. All right. And if you have trouble with your selections, if you're trying to refine the object, if the program is having trouble figuring out what is the real object, and you have multiple objects or whatever, then it's you could play with and it has trouble defining where the edge of the object is and where, say, the background is. Play around with the structure here, slider. If you try it and you get a lousy result, come back, move the slider one extreme end one way or the other, see if that makes it better or worse, and then start fine-tuning it along the way. So at the moment, I'm in the extended mode, and remember, we're working now with the content-aware move tool. So we're going to move. We're going to copy the bird in this case because we have it set for extend instead of for move. So let me make that full size again. So the way we work with this is we basically get the lasso tool and we draw a selection, freehand it however you want. Okay, and I can do it. See, I do a really sloppy job. And it doesn't matter because as soon as you commit to that selection, I take that back. Let me restart that section. Okay, so we're going to start with it in the set for extend instead of move. The idea here is we want to copy the bird from here and make a second copy next to it. All right, so to do that, we have that tool, and it's just a cursor, a plus sign, and we basically draw, and we get a lasso. It leaves a lasso. It's the equivalent of a lasso selection tool. All right. Now you notice I did a really rough selection, and the reason this works is because it's going to take everything I've selected, and if I move the selection up here, okay, you see we can move the bird and the corresponding sky around it. Everything within the selection gets moved, and if the sky, in this case it's a relatively even sky, so it wasn't a problem moving it. If I drop it, in addition to the selection, it's a bounding box. This is actually a free transform box. I can go down to the keyboard and hit the up and down arrow keys to move the selection up or down. So I could try to line up the twig with, the wire with where it should be. Now you notice it doesn't perfectly match because the wire is at a funny angle. But because it's a transform box, I can go to a corner and you get the curved double-headed arrow and you can sort of rotate it just a little bit. Okay, and try to improve on it when you do that. And I have trouble with my mouse moving small distances on the end of my couch here. There we go. And I'm trying to do a compromise. It's not going to work perfect. Combination of moving up and down and getting it to fit. Anyway, once I got it where I want, I can commit to that by either hitting I can cancel it, or I can commit to it by hitting the check mark, or I can hit enter on my keyboard. So I hit enter on my keyboard, and you see what it did is it left behind the original. It made a copy of it. The selection still stays, so you can go up to select and deselect, or you can just hit Control D, which is the shortcut for unselecting it. So now that allowed us, using the extend mode, what that tool allows us to do is to make a very nice copy. The interesting thing is I didn't have to make a good selection. All I had to do is, very roughly, crudely do it. And it moved the sky over, and then the sky, because of the content aware, the sky tried to match up the surrounding sky that's just outside the selection with what's inside, and it changes the inside to match the outside, so it blends it better. So that's a powerful thing to happen. It's a very fast way of moving an object around and not having to worry much about, does it fit in, does it blend, do I have to change a whole bunch of settings once I move it over there. Okay, let me back this up for a moment. I'm going to hit Control Z a couple of times to, all right, go back to where we didn't do anything yet. I'm going to go up on top, and I'm going to change it up there from extend to move. Okay, and once I choose move, you'd basically do the same thing. We still have the tool selected. Going to come down here, and again, I'm going to draw my just really rough selection around the bird. I didn't do a good job there. Okay, if I screw it up, by the way, I can hold down the shift key and add to the selection, I think. Let me see if that works. Hold down the shift key, and just like with the lasso tool, click and come around here. Yeah, see, and it adds that to the selection. If I want to remove some of that from the selection, I can hold down the Alt key, hold the Alt key, and that cuts that little corner away from the selection. All right, anyway, once I have it, now because I'm in move instead of extend, if I go down with the cursor and I grab the bird and I move him, so far everything looks exactly the same. I put him in position, I move him up and down a little, I rotate him a little maybe, if I can do the rotation a little bit better than I did last time. Somewhere around there. Close enough. Okay, and then to commit to it, I hit either the check mark or hit enter on the keyboard. And you notice it removed the original one here and did this. And as long as your selection you went around was wider than the feather, let's say the bird, if you had a selection previously set for, say, the lasso tool or the marquee tool, and you had a feather of maybe, like, say, 10 pixels, what would happen is the bird, when it was over here originally, it would look pretty much the same, except that part of the bird gets, the edge of the bird gets smeared out into the background, as a soft feather. And when you make this selection, what happens is it would tighten in on it. And when and in this case, it didn't tighten in at all. But if you used the other tool, the tool up on top, that is the object selection tool, you put that around it and it makes the circle, rough circle basically, and then when you say okay, it shrinks the circle down and does a very tight selection on the bird. If you have it feathered, you're screwed, because what happens when you're feathered is it'll make the selection, but it leaves behind anything that's outside the edge of the bird, anything that's outside the current marching ant part of the selection, and there's a little bit extending. If it's a 10 pixel feather, you're going to have 10 pixels going over. And then what happens when you move the bird, when you use this tool and you move it, the problem you run into is it's going to leave an outline of the bird where it was, but it's going to move the main part of the bird over to this location. So did I show you that, or did I screw up that video and had to restart it? I might have screwed that one up and had to restart it. But anyway, moving it here, see, that works very nicely here, basically. And again, after I'm done the move, you just hit Control D to get rid of the marching ants, and you're done. Okay? You want to move it back? Do the same thing. We still got that tool active. Just go over and we can grab it. Doesn't matter how big the box is this time. Let's see. All right, we grab that, we drag it, we put it down. Now you see maybe it's easier to line up the wire if you got to a section of the wire it lines up with a little bit better. Now, you still screwed it up a little. And if you wanted to get the transform box, go to any corner, double-headed arrow, and click it a little. And of course, you can resize the box too. If you hold down the Shift key, is the way mine is set up. Hold down the Shift key, get a double-headed arrow in the corner, and drag it. I can resize the bird, and so that I can make a big bird, a little bird, a middle bird. Okay, and then again, to commit to it, you just hit Enter, Control D to remove the selection, and it did the move. Okay, so that's in the move. And had we moved it and then we switched to the extend mode and moved it back, we would end up with two birds from the other direction. So that works well. Like I said, the problem you run into is, as a tool here, it works very simple. I had hopes that if I have, well, in fact, I could do this with multiple birds. Let me go back to extend. Okay, we still have the tool. Let's do another move. Make a couple more birds here. Okay, I'm going to move it, but I'm not going to move it very far. I'm going to move it, let's say just move it that far. Commit to that. Okay, deselect. All right, and then let's say I do it one more time. Let's go in and again, I'm going to cut this out. Oops. And grab him and move him. Let's say we move him right about, I don't know, about there maybe. This is interesting because he's overlapping. Part of the selection is overlapping with the bird. So if I commit to that, let's see what happens. Okay. So in fact, and then Control D. Okay, so in fact what it did do, the content aware analyzed the feature, and it decided that there really is sky between them. So this is a tough selection. I mean, I would obviously had to have done a tighter selection. So one way of doing the tighter selection, let me go back. I had hopes of doing, and I think it might even work here. Okay, at this stage, let me undo that also, Control D. Yeah, at this stage I got these two guys, and they're fairly close to each other. And the question is, well, let's go switch over to the object selection tool, which is up on top, right there. All right, and object selection tool, and we're in the rectangle mode for it. So if I go here, and let's see, if I don't have a feather and I try to move it here, see if it does this cleanly. I think it ought to. Okay, so it made that selection. And again, at this point, if I come back to the content aware move to, which is set for content aware fill. Okay. And I want to, it's already selected, so I don't have to draw the lasso tool. And I take that and oops, that ain't going to work. Why is that not going to work? I did something wrong there. Let me back it up a little more. All right. I'm back up on the object selection tool, which is right there. Okay. I draw my rectangle. It makes a selection. Now I've got it selected. So now I come down to the content aware fill one. And I click inside. There we go. And now when I try to move it, well, let's see, how far do we want to move it? Let's try moving it that far to start with. So it's still overlapping like that. Hit enter. Okay, so the content aware, because it was a tight selection, the content aware moved it fully selected and put it in the right spot and didn't really leave a shadow behind. Let me back up, do the exact same thing. Okay, I've got it selected at this point. I'm going to change it from extend to move. I want to see what's left behind when I do this. And again, I come down and I've already got the selection, so I don't have to redo it. I just want to click in the center and then try to move it, which it does. And let's say I move it that far. Okay, remember, we're in a content aware move tool. I release it. All right, I hit enter. And you see now it did remove that one, and it did overlap on top of this one, but because I had this tight up against it, they look like they're matching pretty well. Notice, however, when I do the Control D, all right, if we go in and look here, you see a little bit of an outline of what was left behind. I had high hopes that as long as I used a feather of only, 1/10 of a pixel for when I, set up for the entire selection tools, that basically I could get away with it doing a clean move from here to here and not leave anything behind. And you see, unfortunately, in this case, it did. Now the question is, did I have the feather really at that setting that I thought I had? And the only time you actually see the feather tool, because if you go to modified, I don't think it's available now. You go to select. Yeah, see, modify is grayed out at that point, so we don't have a selection. Well, let's see. Let me go back to where I had a selection and reverse that. The bird is selected still. So now when I go to select and I come down to modify and I look at feather, yeah, see, I did set the feather back to 0.0. If I try to make it actually 0, I don't think it'll take it. No. The minimum value you can use is 0.1. All right. So basically, I thought this would be a great way where you could, take individual birds, build them into a flock, and not leave anything behind. And you see, if you do it as the move, it leaves the shadow behind. But if we don't do it as the move, if all we do is instead of doing, move, we do extend so that we leave the original there, then it would look fine. It would look like it does this without any problem at all. So let me back up and try that. Okay. All right, so we're selected up here, and we're going to switch it from move back to extend. All right, then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to grab the selection, we're going to move it part way, and we're going to release it, hit enter, and deselect. All right. And now you've basically made a tight flock. Even though the feather was still there and didn't get moved, the fact that the original bird is there, you don't notice that the feather didn't get moved. Yeah. And let's see, can we tell the feather? Well, maybe it's a little hard to tell at this resolution, but oops, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry. Let me get to move. Okay. What I was looking for, well, yeah, you see, we are seeing a little bit of an edge of a feather there. So it almost works. Yeah. You can make it work. It's not really intended to use these two together. It's really intended, when you're in the extend mode, actually move, in the extend mode or the move mode, choose a big enough area to start with and make sure you're not selected so it's not going to show that edge. Yeah. Okay. I think I'll stop at that point because I should have confused you enough by now. All right, let me kill the video, which I do by doing this. I hope you got something useful out of this video. And please remember to send me any feedback you have on if this video was helpful to you or what kind of improvements I should make in it. If there is sufficient interest, I will continue doing more of these videos in the future. Thanks for watching.